What is cracking, everybody? Hello and welcome back to Gaming 101 with Mr. Berger. I'm recording in the day, which is unusual, so the lighting looks a little bit different. So hey, I'll say today we're going to be taking a look at this P.E.K.K.A Magic Archer Royal Hogs control deck. Now this is kind of like a variant of the P.E.K.K.A Battle Ram Magic Archer deck that is really popular right now. And in fact, I did a video on that deck a while back, and it's one of those decks that, or one of those videos that I notice gets recurring views. Like, it doesn't get a whole lot at first, but then as time goes on, you know, the older videos don't get as many views, but this one keeps popping up. People keep checking it out, so it's a really popular deck is what that shows me, basically. So I thought, okay, I'll do the Royal Hogs version of this. So I found this deck on Royal API, and it's slightly different. I don't think the other one had Rascals in it, but I could be mistaken. So it's a little bit different, but it's a similar concept. You got the Battle Ram, or not the Battle Ram, excuse me, you got the Royal Hogs instead of the Battle Ram, you got the P.E.K.K.A, and you got the Magic Archer, and then you got a few other, you know, support cards and things like that, and 2 spells as usual. So it's kind of a variant of that deck, but with the Royal Hogs. I'll call it the Royal Hogs version of this P.E.K.K.A Magic Archer deck. So it's played like a control deck. You kind of play defense for most of the time, early on in the game, and you use that, you know, defensive potential to gain elixir trades, positive elixir trades, and gain an elixir advantage. And then when you get the opportunity, you go for this big, strong offensive counter push. So the P.E.K.K.A in this deck is generally used as a defensive card. You don't usually use it as something that you like place at the bridge aggressively. I mean, you can do that actually, but you don't generally use it as something that you build a big snowball behind. So it's not like a golem beatdown deck. You're not playing this P.E.K.K.A like a beatdown kind of tank. Now don't get me wrong, she can play that role, but you do that after she's been used on defense. You want her to be, you know, gain benefit of, you know, her massive damage and her massive tankiness on defense, get some sort of like an elixir trade, a positive elixir trade with that, or any sort of, you know, defensive potential elixir trade, even if it's not a positive one, regardless if it is or not. Now they've got this massive P.E.K.K.A to deal with coming down the lane. So even if you counter like their 4 elixir hog with your 7 elixir P.E.K.K.A, not only is their hog completely shut down if you place her properly, but now they got this huge P.E.K.K.A that they have to deal with. And you can see here, you can use like the hogs like that as soon as the P.E.K.K.A goes to the bridge, and the P.E.K.K.A and the Royal Ghost are just tanking for everything. The hogs are doing damage, and it's just a really deadly, really powerful deck. So P.E.K.K.A is generally played on defense. You usually use her defensively. You get that, you know, counter push going, and then you know, once you get that elixir trade, the positive elixir trades, you get a big counter push going, and you use that massive push potential because you have, you know, way more units on the board than them now with those positive elixir trades to, you know, just completely plow through and take out one of their towers. Now, you have plenty of other stuff to get damage onto the tower. You got your Magic Archer, you got your Royal Hogs, you can chip away with spells. The Ewiz, you know, can connect to the tower pretty easily, chip away with the Bandit Girls, or excuse me, the Bandit Girls, because they look like the Bandit, the little Rascals girls. So the P.E.K.K.A isn't like your main win condition for the tower. You can even use her as like a surprise, hang on to her until like double elixir or something like that, and just surprise your opponent, and then go for, you know, a big surprise attack, basically. You know, use her defensively when they don't know that you have her, and all of a sudden they don't have their Inferno Dragon in hand because they used it for something else, and your P.E.K.K.A is able to just wreak havoc. Alright, so this is a great deck to learn how to use the Magic Archer. He can be used as long-range support for your P.E.K.K.A. So you got the P.E.K.K.A, and her biggest counter is, you know, swarmy units like Skeleton Army, Goblin Gang, things like that, other than like Inferno Dragon and Inferno Tower, obviously. So you're going to see a lot of times that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to get your P.E.K.K.A to waste a bunch of her swings because she attacks really slowly on something really weak like a skeleton or a guard or a goblin. So with that Magic Archer in the back there, it gives you the potential to have a super long range kind of AoE swarm clear. So, you know, if your P.E.K.K.A is getting distracted by all these skeletons from a skeleton army, if you got that Magic Archer in the back, he's there just slowly but surely getting rid of all of them, and in a few seconds they'll be all gone. Because, and I mean, he doesn't have that same AoE as like a wizard, but he does have the potential to take out multiple units at once, so you can really clear out a lot of things like skeletons really easily. Alright, let's see what else we have here. So great deck for Magic Archer. He's great to counter or to support your P.E.K.K.A from far range. Not only does he have that, you know, massive swarm clear, but he's got massive range, almost as long as a princess, so he can stay really, really far behind. And he can support that P.E.K.K.A really well from a very safe distance. Now the Royal Hogs are kind of like your main win condition. You want to use them in a Counterpush, so you play defense like I've been saying, because it's like a control deck. Well, here's a great example of that Magic Archer, although I ended up logging there anyway. But regardless, he's chipping away at all the support cards there and clearing the way for the P.E.K.K.A from some of the skeletons and things like that. So anyway, the Royal Hogs are your main win condition. You use them in your Counterpush, and you can possibly use them once you got the P.E.K.K.A in front, because then the P.E.K.K.A can tank for them, and I think we saw that earlier in the first replay. That the P.E.K.K.A was tanking and the Royal Hogs were placed behind her, and they are able to connect to the tower much more easily and effectively without being countered immediately. So for spells, we got our standard 2 spells. You got your Fireball and your Log, which actually kill Witch right now. They didn't for a little while. It was only Poison and Log that killed Witch after she got the massive buff to her hit points and skeleton spawn speed. But at this point, the Fireball Log combo does kill the Witch, so keep that in mind if you're going up against the Witch. Now the Royal Ghost is still one of the best 3-cost cards, so let's talk about him a little bit. He's very versatile. He has a lot of different utilities that are unique to him. He's got the invisibility, he's got splash damage, his tankiness, he's strong enough to one-shot goblins. Like, it's just crazy. He's such a good card, even though he got nerfed. So he's really good in a lot of roles in this deck. He can play that mini tank role for something like the Royal Hogs if he needs to. And he can clear out swarms and all kinds of things. Use him with the P.E.K.K.A, use him instead of the P.E.K.K.A. Excuse me, it doesn't matter. You know, he's a great card. He's very safe to cycle in the back. He doesn't cost much elixir, so that's a great opening move. It's the Royal Ghost in the back. Safe to cycle in the back, he doesn't cost much elixir. He is, you know, not susceptible to a lot of spells because of his invisibility and stuff. People don't generally respond to him all the time, and if he does connect to the tower, he gets a solid amount of damage. And he's good because he counters things really well. He'll counter swarm units or certain single units and buy you some time because of his tankiness. So no matter what they put down, he's a good first card to place, a good opener. So versatility and, you know, safe opener, safe cycle in the back. That's what makes this guy a really strong, powerful card all around. Now, let's see. We got those 2 spells like I mentioned earlier. You generally want to save them for clearing out the way for your P.E.K.K.A if necessary, but, you know, of course, like I said earlier, you can use them on things like a Witch or even a Wizard to try to just get it away from off the battlefield. Make sure to try to get some chip damage off on their tower as well if you're going to try to do that. Let's see, there's actually a minor element of spell bait in this deck because you got the Magic Archer, right? You got the Ewiz, that's 2 cards that are very susceptible to Fireball and Log and Poison and Rocket. Then you got the Royal Hogs and the Rascals. These are all cards that are susceptible to things like Fireball and Poison generally, those mid-range spells. So, like that right there, he just used the Fireball on the Hogs, and you can see why he did it. It shuts them down pretty well. It doesn't completely shut them down, they get some chip damage off in the tower, but it does a really good job of, you know, buying a bunch of time. It only costs 4, whereas the Hogs cost 5, so it's not, it is a good counter to something like the Hogs. So if they Fireball your Hogs, then all of a sudden you've got this leeway to place down, you know, your Magic Archer, or if they, again, Fireball your Magic Archer, and you know that their Fireball is one of their main counters to your Hogs, then you can safely place your Hogs right after. So there is that element of spell bait in this deck, so, you know, play with that in mind. It's not the same as like a Log bait deck or a Zap bait deck, it's a heavier spell bait deck, but regardless, it's has that potential there. So play with the thought of like, okay, they just used their Fireball, how can I take advantage of that? How can I profit from that? The fact that they just used their Fireball in one thing. What else can I put down before they get something else out, before they're able to cycle back to their Fireball? Alright guys, this is one of those last replays where I show a loss. I was kind of distracted, I believe, in this particular match, so we'll see where I went wrong. I'll talk a little bit more about the deck, card replacements, and opening moves, and I'll see if I can point out a few things that I did poorly where I went wrong. then we'll call it a video. So one last thing, there's a lot of legendaries in this deck, so it's not very free to play friendly. But if you have all legendaries, and legendaries are becoming easier and easier to get with things like trade tokens and increased drop rates and things like that, then definitely try this deck out with all those legendaries. If not, then let's think of some card replacements. There's generally some go-to replacements for a lot of cards, and I'll discuss that in just a second here. So not very free to play friendly, but if you do want to try it out, it's a deck very similar to this. If you have like maybe just the Magic Archer and then you got the Royal Hogs and the P.E.K.K.A up to level, maybe you can switch out things like the Royal Ghost or the Ewiz for alternatives. Alright, opening moves. As I mentioned, Royal Ghost in the back is one of your best opening moves. Another good one is Magic Archer in the back. The only problem with that is then they're going to like fireball him and get chip damage off on your tower, which is good for them. But again, once they've done that, then you can try to profit on sending something like your Royal Hogs in. You could play your Rascals in the back. They're not too great split, but you could split them if you wanted, and then one girl would go down one lane and the boy and the other girl would go down the opposite lane. You never want to open with your P.E.K.K.A unless it's on defense. If they aggressively send in like a Hog or a Giant or something on offense early on, you can use your P.E.K.K.A as your opener. But you don't usually want to use her as like a cycle card in the back to build up a snowball, because it's just too risky. She benefits from being a defensive card, really. That's where she shines. So using her to build up that, snowball beatdown kind of thing, it just doesn't work out too well with her. So I would not recommend that. You could cycle Ewiz in the back too. I think he's a little bit tankier than Magic Archer. I'm not 100% on that. I think he survives a fireball, whereas Magic Archer completely dies to it. But don't quote me on that. We'll have to double check that one. So you could use him in the back. He's a pretty safe play too. You can also just hang tight, play defense, and you know what I mean? It is a control deck. Wait to see what they do and counter accordingly. Now you could open with Royal Hogs too. Oh, that's my dog running over there. You okay, sweetie? Yeah, she's doing great. You could counter or open with Royal Hogs too, but generally you don't want to open with your win condition because it's a little bit risky, and then they know what you have as your win condition, so they're able to counter it accordingly from then on out. So let's see, what else is there? That's pretty much it. You generally don't open with your spells. You want to open with like some sort of a troop card. And again, if you're one of those people who likes to play passively and wait to see what your opponent does, then be my guest. Please do play like that. That's not how I play personally, but that's how a lot of people like to play, and this deck is going to be great for that. Alright, so for card replacements. For Rascals, they're a common, so there's not really going to be a replacement. You could get another kind of swarmy unit, maybe like Goblin Gang or something. Plays a similar role, and it's a little bit of a spell bait. For Fireball and Log, you can always do Poison and Zap, or you could go for a heavy spell like Rocket and Lightning. I'm not too fond of the new light spells, Barbarian Barrel and Snowball. Bar Barrel is actually pretty legit, so if you want to put Bar Barrel in for Log, that would be possible. For Royal Ghost, you can go for another kind of mini tank. Something with Splash makes them play an even closer role, but nothing too expensive, so you want like a Valkyrie or a Dark Prince would be a good replacement for the Royal Ghost. If you don't have those or don't like those, you can also go for like a Knight, or maybe even just like an Ice Golem and play a really cheap mini tank. For the Magic Archer and the Ewiz, just go for another long range support. My go-to standard range support card replacement is always going to be Musketeer, because it's just like, one of the first cards you unlock. It's very straightforward and easy to understand. It plays that range support role. It attacks air, it attacks ground, it lives through Fireball. It only costs 4. It's just an all-around good card, especially for a beginner, and it's easy to level up. It's easy to obtain. I believe you start with it, right? For the Royal Hogs, you could go for another. You could go for the Battle Ram actually. That'd make this kind of like the Battle Ram deck. That'd be a great replacement. You could also try it with like a regular Hog Rider maybe. See how that goes. For the P.E.K.K.A, probably another like defensive Counterpush unit. You can see here, I'm probably just I lost to the graveyard because I just didn't have enough to counter it properly, so he's able to get me. Anyway, for the P.E.K.K.A, maybe you could go for like a mini P.E.K.K.A, something else that plays that kind of like defensive Counterpush role. And you could go for like a heavy unit, like a tank, like a Golem or a Giant, but that would change this into more of a beatdown deck and less of a control deck. So I would go with something, like a Lumberjack or a mini P.E.K.K.A, maybe even like a Mega Knight if you have Mega Knight. That would work out pretty well. Alright guys, that is it for today's video on this P.E.K.K.A Magic Archer Royal Hogs control deck. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and have a good night.
Ice all across my head. I have traveled to